Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
All right.
0, yay! Sorry, I can't think that.
Every fucking time you have to blow the intro.
I came a little bit.
All right. So today we have with us a guest, Wes Wennerstrom. Wes is a friend of mine from high school, and I asked him to be on today because when the day that Sinead O'Connor died, Wes, you posted I think it was just a link to a story about the aftermath of her SNL performance, and I just thought that was an interesting topic for us to kind of dive into. Not just her, but like the idea of people speaking for something that, like, in 2023 seems really fucking common sense, that was really controversial at the time.
Yeah, totally.
And one of the examples that I brought up with you when we were texting that I don't know that you did much with, I was guilty of being an asshole when it happened. Like, and I've changed my mind on that. But my example that I had mentioned to you was when Michael Moore got up to give his speech about his Oscar speech for Bowling for Columbine, and it was right at the beginning of the Iraq War, and he was pretty critical of the war. I don't remember the details that much, but I remember being critical of the war and critical of Bush. And Wes has known me since 7th grade, something like that. So
yeah,
Wes knows the old conservative me, the me that I don't deny, but I am ashamed of. And so when
the you who was reborn in Logan.
Yeah, so when we
pass it off to your kid.
Nice. Yeah. No, Logan is he has his low key conservative vibes.
Nice.
But when that happened, I remember being kind of a dick and thinking that he was a piece of shit for doing it. And now I'm like, he was mostly right. If I don't remember all the details, so I don't want to say all right. And then but so yeah, that's
He was all left.
Sounds like Michael Moore. Yeah, close. Yep. Not always on the mark, but
yeah. I mean, nobody's always, but
only I am.
No. So,
no, that's a general lie. I mean, because everybody, by definition, thinks they're in the right spot. Anyone to the left of them is too far left. Anyone to the right of you is too far right. If you didn't feel that, you would be further left or right. We all feel like we're in the right spot, and everybody else is too far the other way.
As long as you're not competitive about it, I mean, that's just the worst. I mean, trying to go super far right, super far left, it's like, if you're some spot on the spectrum, that's good, but don't just keep pushing yourself either way. That's annoying.
Yeah, just try to I just try to think through my. I try not, and obviously I'm guilty of this, but I try not to have opinions anymore that are just gut reactions, and obviously that's impossible. But you have to just kind of learn how to, like, take a step back, take a step back. Don't react in the moment out in public, and then go, what do I think of this? Why do I think that? And is it a reasonable thing to think?
Yeah, and then go do your homework and build context.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sinead O'Connor first, because I think that obviously with her passing 2 weeks ago, something like that, she's the one that kind of is the best example, I think.
There's nothing compares to her.
It's going to be a lot of puns, Wes. I don't know if you've been listening since Matthew has been my co-host, but
okay, I just got to warm up. I'll get some out by the end of the episode.
Yeah. So for listeners, if for some reason you don't know what the Sinead O'Connor controversy on SNL is, it was, and I want to say 1992, but I could be wrong.
Somewhere around there.
It was two.
Yeah. She was the musical performer on Saturday Night Live, and she had told the producers she was going to rip up, or she was going to hold up a picture of somebody else. And then in the moment on live TV, held up a picture of Pope John Paul II and ripped it in half. And that was in protest.
Very, very slowly and dramatically. It was very well done.
Yeah, and that was in protest of the child abuse that she felt was going on. And I will be completely honest with you. I don't know. I don't remember because I'm not old enough. I don't remember how much we, the general public, knew about child abuse going on. Wes and I graduated in 2003 in Boston, so we're very aware of the
Limit
Boston's
Yeah.
of like of that
spotlight.
crisis, yeah, the spotlight crisis, and like how that was all going on our senior year of high school, and we were in the Archdiocese of Boston
Yeah.
when that was happening.
Mhm.
And
I'm old, Wes, so like I was engaged when that SNL
Oh
episode
wow.
happened.
Yeah. Okay.
he's he's
I was 8 when that happened. No,
yeah, we would have
yeah,
been
I was 8. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember seeing it on a lot of like VH1 reruns. You'd be like,
Oh yeah,
Mark McGrath like opining about it. It's like, what the fuck is,
What
yeah.
was
but
interesting was
that's what we had. So yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay was the guest the following week, and while he's a Jew from Brooklyn, he plays an Italian
No, it
character.
was
Oh,
Joe
is he?
Pesci.
So
Joe Pesci. Yeah.
According to
well,
the
maybe he was the
yeah, and
maybe
Joe
he was the week
Pesci
after.
said if
He held up a
Joe Pesci said if he had been
well,
been there, he would have punched her in the face,
Yeah. He
and
said he
that
would have
was
given her
when
a
when, when
smack,
Dice
and then
when
oh
Dice
yeah,
was on, which was it?
he was. Yeah.
If it wasn't the week then, it was the week after. Dice held up the picture taped back together. That's what
No, it was Joe
Dice
Pesci that
Clay
did
did.
that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Am I misremembering in my drunkenness?
it's easy to confuse the two.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I,
I
I
listened
mean,
to a few
Dice
podcasts
is pretty
about
much a
these,
parody of a Pesci.
and I went and I listened to Sinead O'Connor, and man, she was brilliant.
mhm.
Like I was just on a jog, and I was like, all right, let's listen to some Sinead O'Connor. I was like almost in tears by the end of the first song. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, there's some very, very powerful emotional stuff. And a lot of people don't know the picture that she tore up of the Pope used to sit above her mother's mantelpiece
oh,
when she grew up. So it was like really, really personal to her. So I don't know if she like planned this or if she like just decided I'm going to make this happen day
Brought it
of,
with
or
her.
you know
yeah,
what it was. But yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously it was something that was very personal to her. Grew up in Ireland. um, they have a very strong history of colonialism and abuse by the Catholic Church over there. So um, it just might be something that her culture and just she was more aware of than a lot of the American public was at the time. I
yeah,
think it just seemed like really left field to most people watching that. Like, to rip up a picture of the Pope was like the same thing as like, I don't know, like lighting a baby on fire or something like that. It was just,
yeah,
I mean, the big anti-pope sentiment at the time, and in the years leading up to that, was probably more around the anti-gay stance of the church.
yeah,
Like that was the thing. Like when there were like St. Patrick's Day parades and Cardinal Connor, I think the Cardinal in New York at the time was marching. There would be protests against him all the time
okay,
for his homophobic stance.
gotcha.
I kind of think given the time period, if she had done that 10 or let's say she did that in 2004, because I think Pope John Paul was still president, was still Pope in 2004, and this is after the spotlight scandal and everything else. There would still be a shitload of people pissed off about that, regardless of like how much evidence. And that, so to me, it's not even that she was at the wrong time, although she was at the wrong time as well. But like, just the bold statement of like, this man is a party to this problem. That would, I don't think you get a little less of it now because Pope Francis is politicized. Um, because he's pro climate. He thinks climate change is real. So like, he's a lefty pope that like
Is he?
Republican Catholics don't love. No, I'm not being serious, but he's more politicized within Catholic circles than either of the than the Nazi pope before him or the pope, Pope John Paul, who I will say I always thought Pope John Paul was a good guy until even when I didn't necessarily believe in the faith up until pretty maybe the last decade. I thought he was a good guy. Now, obviously his legacy's been marred quite a bit by facts, but
I mean, it's
Brown
hard to,
facts.
I don't know. I mean, I grew up with you. I was surrounded by Catholics, and I wasn't necessarily one. My parents were not Catholic. My dad grew up Catholic, and his grandparents were like deacons, and they had the whole like thing with the with the candle burning like somewhere in the house in like a little enclosure. I don't know what that was about, but I mean, I think they would have. I don't know what their reaction to it was, but I just remember, as I got older, I just was looking at the Catholic Church and I was like, they're responsible for so much carnage, and like, it doesn't matter who's at the top. They gotta, I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
it's like putting I don't know, a ribbon on a piece of like a bucket of shit. It's like, I don't know. I don't know.
I should have researched this
Go ahead.
more, but I think Sinead O'Connor even in an interview said that. Like it wasn't him as much it was the Pope, regardless of which Pope it was.
Yeah.
That's the office she was commenting on as much as anything else.
Yeah.
Because the problem didn't start under him. It goes back. I mean, now we have the whole Canadian thing with the mass graves of Native children, so it goes back forever.
Yeah, and that's like the mass graves is a different church scandal.
The corruption in general is just part of the.
What I was going to say is there. We tend to focus on molestation, but there's so many other problems. Did either of you see Philomena? I think I'm pretty sure it's a true story, and it's about a woman may have been Irish. I forget. It's been 10 years since I've seen it. I think it's Judi Dench plays Philomena, and she's a woman who she got pregnant in like her late teens or early 20s and was unwed, and so in the hospital in a like one of the, and this is in the 40s or so, she went to one of these convents where they would let women give birth and and treat them, take care of them while they were pregnant and let them give birth. And when she gave birth, they told her the baby was dead, and then they sold the baby to like a couple, and they were doing that a lot, like, and I don't know numbers, but that was another big thing that was coming out. And from what I remember of the movie, she was searching for, like, the story came out about that, and these women were finding out that their children were still alive, which they didn't know, in the 80s, because I remember the guy worked for her son. When they found out, he had worked for Reagan, and he was gay and he had died of AIDS. There was so many problems. Like, it was just the worst string of luck for this story, and it was all true. But the Reagan and AIDS probably didn't have that much to do with the Catholic Church, but the church really, like, they took this boy from his mother, and I don't remember if he ever knew that he had been adopted. It was just like this super fucked up story, but that would have been that whole scandal would have been coming out, and that could have been Ireland as well. So Sinead O'Connor might have been aware of all of that, or I would imagine she was as aware as any other average person was.
And probably more than average, because she was an activist.
Yeah, and she was a person, who had a lot of mental health struggles and had been abused, and probably had some form of complex post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that. So this is a person who's just really, really a raw person. And I think her personality was not necessarily like a really like easy one. And that's part and parcel of having that kind of diagnosis and that kind of life. And to this day she still says, like, I don't give a shit that I tanked my career. All that I did was not like buy some yachts and some vacation houses for some executives. Like, like I still make music and I still enjoy myself, and
She didn't become a musician to be famous. She became a musician to express herself, and she was still able to do that.
But I mean, just being a woman, I think whereas a lot of men would have been able to bounce back from something like that, I don't think she was given that chance.
Yeah, and that actually that kind of sticks with the other one that you and I had talked about, which was Sachin, or is it Sachin or Sachin? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know how it's pronounced. I know it's Sachin Little Feather. We could just go with Sachin, I guess. Yeah.
Sachin Little Feather, who was when Marlon Brando won the Best Actor Oscar for The Godfather, he sent her to receive his Oscar for him, and to inform the Hollywood and whoever was watching of the industry and the Hollywood problems with the Native American community, and the American problems with the Native American community, and she was giving it. She was booed while she was giving us the speech. Apparently, John Wayne had to be like restrained.
Yeah.
Uh,
He wanted to fight
yeah,
her.
which like it doesn't surprise me. I know that people love that dude, but
And apparently,
like
John Wayne had done like this interview with Playboy that was like not too far before that, where he was just a total racist piece of garbage. You
yeah,
know, just like pretty much like on the nose white supremacy the whole time. So
oh yeah.
it was pretty
I heard
timely. Yeah.
one of the quotes I heard is one of the few quotes I've heard from him outside of a movie was him saying, and it was something about black people, and I'm sure he said the blacks or something ridiculous like that. But something along the lines of they're not going to get treated as equal until they act as equal, and I was just like, what a disgusting like. I don't know. I don't. It's tough because we talked about Matthew and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like sometimes on the left or on both sides, we just try to like anytime we disagree with somebody, we shit on the quality of their product. But like John Wayne wasn't a good actor, so it's like tough.
No,
Like
he was like a failed actor.
yeah,
Have you
it,
guys seen him as a young man?
no,
Oh,
Nope.
you got to see this. Ready? Look at what a pretty boy he was.
oh yeah, he was a surfer. He
So
was from
yeah,
California.
and he totally tried to make a career, and he was getting cast in B stuff. He basically had no career until he just got into this whole cowboy, you know, rigid cowboy thing. So
Yeah, I mean it's been a winning combo for conservatives who can't make it in Hollywood for a long time to just like play into the like tough boy conservative thing, you know.
So his, you want to hear his actual quote
Sure.
go for it.
without doing an impersonation? I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility. I don't believe in giving authority and positions of leadership and judgment to irresponsible people.
God damn it.
Oh,
Does it say
gross.
when that quote was?
It is the Playboy quote, 1971.
Okay, so that's not like 1925 or something ridiculous.
No, no, it's
Yeah.
when affirmative action was happening.
Yeah.
And,
No.
and the Voting Rights Act had been around for 7 years. Yeah, it's when they were getting uppity.
Yeah. The reason I asked is because you can imagine somebody being like, well, that was early in his career, and blah, blah, blah. But 71, he only lived for like 5 or
Yeah.
6, 7 more years, something like that.
Man, it's like a bigger controversy that the guy was like allowed to be at the Oscars. I mean, it would
Yeah.
be now.
Yeah.
Back then, I guess that was still a
Not
legitimate
like
thing to
smack
talk
Chris
about.
Rock.
I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's kind of it reminds me of you guys have seen Hamilton or are familiar with Hamilton.
Finally saw it recently.
I have a
Yep.
20-year-old daughter.
Yeah. It's funny to me whenever I watch or listen to Hamilton, like that Thomas Jefferson is such an asshole when it comes to you had an affair on your wife, and it's like, dude, you have a 12-year-old slave that you're raping, like, and like because Sally Hemings was 12 years old when he started his relationship with her, and so like this isn't like we like to rewrite the history, so it's like they had a loving affair, like a loving relationship, but she was 12 and he was an adult, and like so there's literally no way in which that's okay by today's standards, and I would say that it's hard to imagine that it was really understandable by that day's standards, but
It was the Jeffrey Epstein of
Well,
the
I mean,
1800s.
yeah,
it was understandable that she wasn't like it was a person.
true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, pretty gross. I mean, just thinking out loud. I mean, I know the Oscars recently were saying like, we're not going to consider movies without these diversity standards. Do you think there's any like lineage from that incident to present day Oscars?
Probably not directly.
Mm.
I think that
I bet it was brought up in conversations when they were
Yeah.
doing that. But I don't think but it's one of 100 incidents. Right?
yeah, and I think that like a huge part, and it's tough when you look at the Oscars because the Oscars are trying to be an award ceremony for an industry, and so we think of them kind of shaping the industry, and that is partly how they're used, because if you are if you're given a performance and your studio decides that they want to back you for the Oscar, they know that that's going to help you sell more, and that not only will like you as the actor sell more, the movie will sell more, but then you will get better gigs and you'll be more bankable of a star. So they do use it to it's one of those weird like the tail wags the dog and the dog wags the tail simultaneously situations. But we kind of think of it as, well, this is just a reflection of. and and that was part of why when they started talking about Oscars so white and trying to make these diversity and inclusion standards, the point was this is how we can kind of push back on the fact that like a big reason why there aren't that many black people getting nominated, or there aren't many gay people or trans people, is because they're not being given parts as often. And
You get what you reward.
yeah.
So if you reward the same old movies every time, studios are going to make the same old movies.
Yeah, and so they're saying, okay,
Yep.
like by doing this, they're saying you've got to give us more diversity in order for us to reward more diversity, and and I think also like they're saying, hey, this will also maybe force us to look at, I know that Moonlight won with, I think, prior to a lot of those diversity and inclusion things, but like the Oscars doesn't have a great history of recognizing diversity, even when it is artistically merited. Like, look at Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing, yeah.
Didn't even get nominated, and like
It's a great movie.
It's an absolutely amazing movie, and I would argue, and again, I'm coming at this as
Except, why did Danny Aiello say pizzeria? I grew up in New York City. I never heard anyone say pizzeria my entire life. Every time he says my pizzeria, I was like, "What the hell are you saying?"
And he's an actual New York Italian too. That's really weird.
I mean, at most pizzeria owners, and I've been around a lot because my best friend's parents owned a pizzeria, and like they hung out with the other owners in Brooklyn. It's a very community thing.
Yeah.
They always say the store. Like they don't even refer to it as a pizzeria. They call it their store. We're going to the store.
Yeah.
But they don't even specify that.
Okay.
I'm just
given
that's why it didn't win.
That's why it didn't get nominated.
Because of Danny Aiello and his stupid.
Actually, he got nominated. He's the only thing that got nominated from that movie.
Was he really?
I'm 90% sure he got nominated. It could have been like a costuming or something, but of the big categories, the only thing that got nominated was him.
Was that?
Well,
did he
speaking of,
did he do Hudson Hawk with Bruce Willis? Was that?
I don't know. I've heard of Hudson Hawk, but I don't know enough about it.
It may have been making up for that because that was the most amazingly performance ever, and he didn't get nominated for that.
I'm looking it up right now.
It would be so much funnier if you knew how bad that movie was.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of inauthenticity, so there's also a lot of controversy because apparently Sacheen Littlefeather is not Native American. So,
the more I've looked into that, that's not her real name. And there may be it may be one of these deals where, the people who want to discredit her say that about her, or maybe she's 50%. But I remember seeing something about it where it seemed as if she was, and she just wasn't as, she played it up. She wouldn't have normally gone dressed there, but it was part. But he, or maybe Marlon Brando was under the impression that she was. They were trying to do the right thing.
Totally.
And,
yeah. Well, from the research I did, it seems like the majority of evidence says that either there's no way to connect her with these tribes because she's Mexican, so there were some tribes in Mexico that maybe she could be connected with, but she wasn't culturally raised Native American, and that's not the biggest deal, right? But it does.
And by
it
1974, sorry, I was going to say by 1974 standards, but today we would be like, we want somebody authentic to play. But by that standards, the fact that she just wasn't white was a start. Like.
Well, it's still, with the Yellowstone actress, that her authenticity is questioned. I don't know. I mean, there's still a real representation issue of actual Native Americans, being cast in Hollywood roles.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that it kind of lent to the strangeness of this whole thing that happened, right? Because it's not like Sinead where she got up and she had this powerful statement. It was coming from the heart. This was like a really odd, sort of convoluted way of putting this message out. So like, it's not Brando. He doesn't accept the award. He has this other person go in. She gets a lot of flack for doing it. it was just like it took a while for people to parse out exactly what happened. Like,
Hmm.
why did he
Yeah.
do it this way? Couldn't he have gone and done this himself? You know,
Yeah.
could he have done more homework? Like, how involved is this guy really in the AIM movement, or is this like kind of performance art to piss off the music industry? Or I'm sorry, the film industry. Um,
Well,
so
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
loved pissing
Yeah,
people off, so that's a fair statement. But
yeah,
I know that I saw I'm totally spacing on Matthew. You'll know the guy's name. He was the best talk show, like the best interviewer of the '70s and '80s.
Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett, yeah. He was on Marlon Brando was on that show alongside three or four Native American leaders, and it was to do. It wasn't. I think it was to do with land rights at that point, and he brought them on with him because he knew that they couldn't get onto a show without him because they didn't have it. They weren't celebrities. They didn't have it. So
yeah.
he did that. He was a supporter. He was um, at some level, and I don't remember exactly, but he was a big MLK um, supporter, and there was some speculation that he helped get coverage on some of the civil rights movement. So he did do a lot. That isn't doesn't mean that the average person was aware of that at the time.
Sure.
Um, and so it could have seemed going on the Oscars could seem performative if you're not that aware of it, and not to mention like there is an extent to which it could have been also performative. Like he could have been authentic, but he could have said, "Hey, we can make a bigger splash doing it this way or whatever."
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So there's that element of like, they're doing this, but it's like a stunt, right? It's like kind of a piece of almost performance art. It's not
yeah,
art, but it's like it does have that like makes you
I
think like
mean,
why did they do it that way?
but I think she did it real respectfully in a way too. Because I mean, what she did was she came and said, "There's a big speech, but I'm not going to give it
Yeah,
now. I'll give it to the press later. Here's what the topic is, how we're treated, and what's the protest recently wounded me, and I'll get the full statement to the press." Like she didn't grandstand, make a speech, have to be dragged off. She just said, "I'm going. This is going to give me the opportunity to stand in front of the press and give a speech
yeah,
and have six people restrain John Wayne, according to."
like in his 60s, John Wayne too. Like not like a young man. Like the fact that they make it sound like he was such a like tough guy, but he was an old man that was just like yelling. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then Clint Eastwood got up
Keep my
afterwards and
motherfucking
he
country's
goes,
name out of your
Yeah,
motherfucking mouth. And he went
Clint Eastwood gets up and he goes, "Should I accept this award or something on behalf of all the cowboys who died in, you know, shooting movies or whatever?" Yeah, just totally tasteless
yeah,
comment, that people thought was
Dude, they were the
hilarious.
bad guys.
So,
yeah,
Tucker, that's still the time people didn't want to admit that. Yeah, the people who came to the other people's lands, they're the bad guys in the fight. They're pretty much, it that's how that works.
yeah.
well, that was the whole
I,
thing. Is yeah, they were portrayed as people that were the aggressors, and they weren't.
yeah. I think Clint Eastwood is uh, significantly more talented than John Wayne, but not significantly better. Um, I mean, better because I don't know that he has come out and said that white supremacy is a good thing, but like that's not that much. That's such a low bar. So
He
Did
didn't
you
say
guys
it
watch?
out loud.
Did you watch The Mule?
yes,
I like that. That was
I
like
did.
I felt like that was him like kind of being like, "Hey, look, like, I can really do something where I can like use this platform, kind of make an apology for what I've done in the past and like portray,
Yeah,
people that are not white as like being just fine, like, Latinos as being like really respectful of elders, like African Americans, like he does there's like one point where he makes like a microaggression toward one and they're just like, "Oh, hey, we don't like to be called you people." And he goes, "Oh, okay," and then he just like
yeah,
instead of having a bellyache or fills his diaper, he just does it. So
yeah.
I don't know. There
I
was
I
that.
hate
I
to associate republicanism with racism, but I do. And I think he like formally left the Republican Party in the mid 2000s and became like more of a libertarian.
yeah.
Maybe he gave up the racism
He
stuff.
I think that I liked that movie a lot too, and I think that he is not as nearly as problematic as he used to be. But and that's a good growing is a good thing. We need to encourage people to grow, and we need to not chastise them too harshly for the things of the past, because that will discourage growth. So I think he's a great example. Um, I liked that movie a lot too. I didn't love the ending. I thought the ending fell a bit flat, but otherwise I liked that movie a lot. All right, so we've got so any other ones that you want to what was the one that you brought up before, Matthew?
The Chicks.
Oh yeah,
Dixie
the
Chicks, yeah.
Yeah, they said I think they were in England maybe in a concert, and they said we apologize that
We're from
George Bush is from Texas, and every Republican-owned country music station, which means every country music station, instantly stopped playing all their records.
Amazing. They are the original culture war cancellation. Yeah, it's so interesting that they project that onto liberals, because they have just been doing that forever. And the Dixie Chicks was a huge one.
I think that yeah, you're right that like they have been doing that forever, and they cancel everybody for everything.
I mean,
That
Well, I mean, go
McCarthyism.
back
Come on,
to
you know.
blackballing people McCarthy.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's where it started.
But with the Chicks, the one thing that I think is different from them to Sinead O'Connor or Sasheen Littlefeather is there was a backlash, but it did not ruin their career. And I don't know that it ruined, the quote that you had, Wes, about Sinead O'Connor being like, I didn't tank my career. That's a great outlook for her to have, but realistically, it did have major implications.
It ended her U.S. career.
Yeah,
like she didn't tour the U.S.
Yeah.
and become a U.S. superstar that she was on her way.
And I don't.
She stayed a European.
Yeah, and I don't know what career Sasheen Littlefeather would have had regardless. So maybe, but the Dixie Chicks, like, and now the Chicks, which I also am proud that they got rid of that and like did the right thing there. But the Chicks, they had that one of my favorite. I mean, I love their first album. I love, but that album that came out right after that, there's that "Not Ready to Make Nice, Not Ready to Back Down" song. It's one of my top 5 Chick songs of all time, and that's just it's directly in response to the fact that they were getting like death threats, and um, it's a great song, and they're touring. It's been 20 years or so since they did that, because it was 2003 or 4, and they're doing, as far as I can tell, they're doing pretty well compared to every other country act from that time period. So I love the fact that they didn't really they didn't tank their career. They had backlash, and sometimes backlash ends up propping your career up more, but it doesn't.
I don't know. I mean, it depends what you mean by tank, but the trajectory they were on was to be like the biggest band in country music, and then they became a band that some people know their name. I think it wasn't until they came back as the Chicks recently that they had another big splash where you heard of them.
Yeah, I was not aware of the Chicks. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I mean, they went from being the number one female band at the time, or close to it, or whatever, to not being heard of because they didn't get played on the radio anymore.
Yeah, but it seemed like Brando. I think Brando did have some issues bouncing back from that, but then went on to do other great stuff.
Yeah, he was Brando.
He also had
so
the controversy about the Last Tango in Paris, but I mean, he did go on to do Apocalypse Now and some other movies, and
but Brando's controversy predated that stunt as well, though, because they couldn't. It was very difficult to get Brando the part in The Godfather because he was such a notorious pain in the ass.
Yeah,
like the studio didn't want to back him,
right?
And ultimately, they were like, if you're gonna go for Brando and you're gonna push for Brando, you need to make some other concessions. They were saying this to Francis Ford Coppola, and he was like, I just think that this is the man for the job. And so like I really don't think his backlash probably had that much to do with the publicity from that, as much as it did like, yeah, you just got an Oscar, but they didn't want to give you the part because you're a pain in the ass. And what did you do at the Oscars? You were a pain in the ass. like, and so, and from, Apocalypse Now, amazing performance. It sounds like one of the most difficult people to work with ever when you hear how he behaved on that set. Like, and I mean, I still to this day think he's the best actor of all time, but he was notoriously difficult.
You think he's better than Andy Dick?
I was like, who is he about to say? and I was like, because I can't think of an actor bad enough, but yeah, Andy Dick will do it. Tom Green.
Who's the guy that plays the
second.
same person in every movie? The Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins is a pretty good actor.
He does kind of just do the same thing over and over. I don't know. Unpopular opinion. I guess I don't know. He
Yeah,
was Hannibal,
you didn't
so I
see
guess
Magic.
that's pretty different.
Yeah.
But it's mostly just a wise old sage. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, now that he's old, I remember when he was
He
young.
was like a young old
when I was
sage. You know,
when I was an adolescent, he played a ventriloquist in a movie called Magic, where he goes crazy and he's killing the woman he loves, but thinks the dummy is making him do it. I didn't sleep for a long time.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got to see that one.
He was intense.
Nice.
I love Sean.
Magic is fun.
I love Sean Connery,
Yeah.
but Sean Connery is kind of the same deal where it's like it was more so with his ethnicity. He'd be a Russian with a Scottish accent, or he'd be a Spanish person with a Scottish accent. Because didn't he play a Spanish person in Highlander? Like,
No, actually, he was Egyptian because he was like 2,000
Yeah,
years
the
old.
movie about
He most
Scottish
recently came
people?
from the court of Spain.
he
So the
did.
guy
He never.
called him a Spaniard the whole time. He was Egyptian.
He never did any
What?
accent other than his own accent. So he'd be like, he was a Russian in one of the Tom Clancy ones, and we're gonna have
All right, comrade, come over here.
Well,
Yeah.
same with Anthony Hopkins, right? I mean, doesn't he just do the British accent every time?
Yeah, but he doesn't play he doesn't go play characters that aren't British typically.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing is like he's got that leading man thing of like, this is who I am, like this the persona.
Gotcha.
And he'll inflect slightly, but he doesn't do the transformation thing that like a Brando or a De Niro does. Whereas Sean Connery did the same thing, but he would take on these roles that were very specifically other ethnicities due to their like just the nature of them, and he'd just be like, I'm just gonna do it.
Commander of a Russian submarine.
Yeah.
I hire a bunch of Scottish people to be around me so I don't look out of place.
Yeah. But
And he turned down Gandalf because the script didn't make any sense to him.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Have you not heard of books?
Yeah.
Did you never hear of this book? It's kind of famous.
Yeah.
It was going to be Gandalf, really? Wow.
It was in the running.
Denzel Washington. Going back to the Oscars for a second, Denzel Washington has a great story about how it was either the first or second time he was nominated for supporting actor. I think it was for Cry Freedom or Glory. I forget which one. And no, it was Cry Freedom because he won for Glory. He was up against Sean Connery, and he won. He brought his mother with him, and it was up against Sean Connery and the Untouchables. And Sean Connery came out to present earlier in the night, and he got like a complete standing ovation just for coming out on stage. And Denzel said to his mother, I think we should go home. I'm not going to win. And he didn't.
Yeah.
Denzel seems like such a cool dude. Like, I don't know. I would love to pick his brain, but anyway, what were we saying? The chicks.
You were
The
saying
chicks.
how Sean Connery played an American federal agent in The Untouchables with a Scottish accent?
To be fair, Kevin Costner is the same person in everything except for one line of Robin Hood. One line of Robin Hood, he tries a British accent and then it's like, fuck this, I can't do this. And then he's back to Kevin Costner.
Have you guys
ever
watched
see the Mel
Yellowstone?
Brooks version?
I haven't.
That's Kevin Costner just being Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
It really is
It's
no
Kevin
difference
Costner
than
as
anything
a
else
mailman
he's
in the
done.
future. Kevin Costner as a mermaid in the future. Kevin Costner as a baseball player in Iowa.
Yeah.
But you see Mel Brooks, Robin Hood Men in Tights?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's the
Unlike
line where
other Robin Hoods, I can speak with a British accent.
that was the best.
Yeah.
So
Wasn't some very controversial person like produced that or something like that? It's like someone in the Trump administration or
It could have been Steve Bannon because he was a producer on Seinfeld.
yeah.
It almost actually, there's a lot of people that were in the Trump administration that had weird Hollywood connections. So there was Steve Bannon. I think that the guy that was he the Treasury Secretary? He's a tall, skinny guy. I can't think of his name. Steven. They're both Stevens, I think.
Mnuchin.
Yeah, Steve Mnuchin. He had some Hollywood thing too.
I think it might have been Steve Mnuchin.
Yeah, yeah. There's a. It's gonna be real. It's gonna be real weird in 20, 30 years when we're looking back. I mean, it is weird for us, but it'll be like real weird to try to explain to like kids. Oh yeah, this guy was on a reality show, and like he was kind of a joke. Like people liked him the way they like Oprah or Sally's. What's her face from the like he was like a telemarketer basically.
Sally
And
Jesse Raphael.
yeah, no, I was thinking of the one that did the Thigh Master from
Oh,
Three's
Suzanne
Company.
Summers.
Suzanne Summers, yeah.
Suzanne.
And like he was just hawking shit on TV, which I know that's not what The Apprentice is, but basically that is what The Apprentice is. And yeah, and then we were like, you know what? There was a black guy as president. That cannot be remedied without going hardcore. So let's go pick this orange dude, and it's such a bizarre thing.
It's bizarre. Well, you know the
Yeah,
whole
well,
story
the thing he
behind
was most famous for in New York
Zelensky,
was
the
wanting
president
5
of
people
Ukraine.
murdered.
Yeah,
Zelensky.
Zelensky was a comedian. He was a comedic actor on like a sitcom
Yeah,
that played. Yeah,
yeah. Well, okay. So the sitcom, he is a school teacher who has a viral video that about like the government or something, complaining about how they don't support us, whatever. And then he mistakenly becomes president. And then the actor ran for president and became president. A
yeah,
lot of this shit is just stranger than fiction. It's like,
yeah. It is really bizarre, but I would rather Zelensky as president than Trump.
yeah.
I mean, I know there's some issues with him too, from what I've heard. But although I don't even know that I've heard that from good sources. But like the fact that stayed with the people during everything and didn't flee when he could have
Yeah.
Trump would never do that. Like, no, he'd send you in. He'd be happy to send you in to die. But
Well, he would
That's their
just
job.
stick up for Putin, so it's like, he wouldn't send anybody in.
True.
So
Isn't it insane that the right is actually on Russia's side just because he was a puppet of Putin? It's like, you guys have hated Russia since you were born. All of a sudden, they're your best friend.
So Wes, one thing I wanted to say, I don't know if I want to take my headphones off for a second, but I have not gotten a haircut since the last time I saw you when I got the mullet.
oh yeah, the mullet. Oh yeah, it looks good,
This
Mike.
is the longest my hair has ever been in my life.
I think it looks good.
All right, I couldn't hear you because I had my headphones off.
I think it
What were you
looks
saying?
good.
He asked you if you were changing your name to Mikey Ray Cyrus.
Such a weird, what's such a weird name?
I think you need to buy a
Mikey.
Fender Jazzmaster and just go for it, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about. I had a stressful day at work today, and I was like, "Fuck it," and I was like ready to be done. And I was like, half of my coworkers have never seen me without facial hair, and now I have the long hair, and I'm like, what if I just shaved completely and like kept the long hair? They would be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I would look so
Nice.
weird. Thinking about it, we'll see.
It's always fun to
Because
do.
What you do is
I had like
I can
fuzz the
regrow
sides,
this.
but
I
leave
can
the top?
regrow in like 3 weeks, so like this isn't
Nice.
that much work.
I had a dad stash
But
during
if
the
you,
pandemic, but it backfired because everyone was like, "That looks so good, dude. Yeah, that's like your look now." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't want it." So
Yeah,
me and my coworkers used to do Movember every year. We'd shave
nice.
on November 1st and then grow mustache. And there's this one guy I started a project with like on November 17th or 18th, whatever. We both had mustaches. And December 1st, we both shaved and we both were like, "Oh, you don't normally have a mustache? I just assumed you always do. You look good with it." Like neither one of us knew the other person was doing Movember.
nice.
Anyway, I gotta go.
So, Mike, I think you should make it a number 4 guard and shave your head like up into your part lines and just leave the top totally like
Oh
a
yeah.
flock of eagles.
Yeah,
A flock of seagulls block your eyes.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I gotta run. So do you guys want to like just wrap up the topic or do a?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, we get off topic a lot.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So, is there any last thoughts that either of you have, or any other last examples you want to say real quick? Or
I just think that these things are really interesting to go look at, in like giving a lot of context and kind of like seeing where we've come as a country and like where our
Yeah.
discourse has evolved to. Because I mean, these things are still going to happen. There's
Yeah.
still going to be some threshold and some just like extra surprising venue that these things happen in. And you know, like I know it's
Uh,
totally different, but the Will Smith slap was really shocking, and
yeah. Yeah.
and they ignite a lot of discourse, and I think it's kind of cool. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just
I think. Sorry. Yeah. I agree with you.
yeah,
I was gonna say I think that when it comes to things like this, where it's something that someone has obviously none of these were all to some extent premeditated. These were not spur of the moment thoughts that these folks had. Um, when someone puts that much care and thought into it to making a message, we owe it not only to them but to ourselves to at least give it thought beyond our immediate visceral reaction. Um, Not to say that like people 3 days after either of these events would have handled it properly, but handling it in the moment, like the John Wayne or those kind of people, you're you're not going to have you've got the mob mentality issue, which I think is a problem. You have the fact that like someone's challenging what you just assumed to be, like this is a good thing, and so I what like the the church gives money to homeless people, so how can it be a bad thing? Like, and there is that inherent defensiveness, and we're all probably guilty in some way of being able to do this. I know that I am, and so, but I think, like I said earlier, that we need to give that moment. We shouldn't be reacting in the moment, as best as we can, and we should be trying to think like, hey, this maybe isn't the way I would have done it, but does the point stand? Does the point make sense? Am I defensive for a reason that
yeah,
is a good reason, or am I defensive because I watched? Sorry to go off topic for one. This will be real quick. I watched a video. There's a trans woman that I watch a lot of her videos. She talks all about trans representation in media. Her name is Lily Simpson on YouTube, and she did a video about Ace Ventura, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I like knew going in, I'm like, I'm
Does
not, I
not
do
hold up
not,
well.
I know that she's, some of what she's going to say, but I want the full perspective, because she does like full 45-minute breakdowns. This isn't like 3 minutes of like quick, things. And I it was difficult for me to challenge the fact that I love this movie, and why am I defensive of this movie, and
Yeah.
what does it say about me? If the movie's transphobic and I love the movie, what does it say about me? And that is a difficult thing. And I don't know that I think that if I watched the movie right now, I would still find a lot of it funny. Like, so I didn't change my outlook on it, but I didn't think for 1 minute that what she was saying was ridiculous. I just but a year, 2, 3 years ago, I would not have been able to do that. And so I think that's what we need to start being able to do, is say, hey, what does it say about me? Why am I upset about this? And is that a good reason? And it's okay to be upset with something in the moment, and depending on how you behave about it. So upset isn't the problem always, but like sometimes once that wanes, you have to then say, okay, do I continue to be upset as this goes forward? Do I continue to oppose this, or do I say, yeah, no, I was wrong, or there is an injustice here, or there is a problem here.
hmm
So that's
that's
my
good.
final thought.
Yeah,
What about you, Matthew? You got anything?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of I Want Your Hands on the Big Stuff.
Okay, we'll clip that into the end, because I didn't mean like I was gonna
No,
give Wes a chance to plug anything
no,
that he might want to plug.
I just want to do my joke.
Yeah, every episode he does a big stuff pun. So
It's another Sinead
gotcha.
O'Connor song. I want your hands on my
oh yeah.
heart or something. I want your hands
So
on
Wes, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, just in terms of the theme of the episode, check out I think it's MMIW. I don't know if it's MMIW.com, but it's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women.
Okay,
And it's an
I will find
organization.
out and I will link it
Okay, great.
in our show notes, and when I post it on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
MMIW, I'll find that out.
Cool. Yeah, it's a really endemic problem where women, especially Indigenous women, especially by like military talents and stuff like that, just disappear and are murdered and abused at a much higher rate, like double, triple that of white women. So people have just really you know done a lot of research on this. Indigenous groups have raised the issue a lot, and it's really starting to see the light of day. And this is kind of like what we should have been doing with the Catholic Church abuse scandal. um, so who knows, maybe this is going to surface in a way in like an awards ceremony or something like that. But that's an issue that you could do research on now, and support and fund and actually find solutions to this, and policy issues or policy solutions to it. So
Great.
that's my one plug.
Okay.
So to plug off that, one of my dear friends is in his retirement is a movie producer, and his production company, Heretical Reason, produced a movie called, I'm looking at it because I don't remember the name, Catch the Fair One, and it's about a half black, half Native American boxer whose sister is kidnapped and sold into sex slavery, and it's based on a true story, and it's her story trying to track down her sister and trying to deal with it. And it's painful, difficult, serious movie to watch. So Catch the Fair One, it brings up all those issues that you're talking about, and at the end has places to reach out to for donations.
Nice, thanks, man.
It's a really excellent independent film.
Great.
And if you're looking for just a really easy entry point into watching some Native American stories, the movie Smoke Signals is like a great comedy. It's a classic movie, and it's like not it has these issues and it raises light to them, but it does it in like a very humorous, interesting way. So I recommend that movie.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, and we will have you on again, I'm sure, when we have another good topic for you. But this was great, and it was nice
Yellowstone.
to have.
I'll do Yellowstone. I'm dying to talk about it. Yeah.
I'll try to catch up and watch it, and we can do an episode on Yellowstone.
Sweet.
But it was also really nice to have a guest that had like really good audio quality. We'll see. Like when I'm editing this, I'm like, oh, this is the best episode ever. So,
like
you got a musician.
Yeah.
Do some
unless your audio's better than mine and Matthew's, then we're gonna just lower it a little. We're gonna like add a little tin or something to your to your voice.
Do some ASMR. Thank you for watching.
Put a hum
talking about the big stuff with Michael Cole.
Yes,
you're the best.
This voice always reminds me of sweaty balls.
Sweaty balls.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, guys.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.